They say that all good things must come to an end. But what about bad things? Must they also come to an end? For over 40 years, Europe had been enjoying a period of peace and prosperity, something that had never happened before in human history. Trade was booming. New inventions were changing people's lives for the better every day. And even the most jaded cynics couldn't help but feel optimistic about the future. But this too, like all good things, would eventually come to an end. The year is 1914, and Gavrilo Princip, a young Serbian nationalist, is sitting at a cafe in Sarajevo, waiting for his chance to make history. Suddenly, a motorcade arrives carrying Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, who is visiting Sarajevo despite many protests from those who oppose Austro-Hungary's occupation of Bosnia. This was a tinderbox just waiting for a spark to ignite it. And when the motorcade passes by the cafe, Princip takes his chance. He draws his revolver and fires 2 shots, killing the Archduke and his wife. Europe now has a decision to make. Are we going to stop this madness or let it continue? We'll let you decide. A young French soldier named Antoine sits in his garden one evening in August 1914, writing a letter to his fiancée Suzanne. His days are filled with training and drilling as part of the newly declared state of emergency. He doesn't quite understand why there's a war, only that his duty is to fight for France alongside his comrades. His friends have already left, so soon he will follow. As he seals the letter with a kiss, ready to send it off to Suzanne, he can only hope that he'll see her again soon. But the reality is much different. The Great War, as it would later be known, has just begun. On August, the German Empire declares war on neutral Belgium, kicking off a chain reaction of declarations as the Antwerp Cordial swiftly formed alliances crumble under the weight of their own ambitions. Within weeks, much of Europe is at war. Trench warfare quickly settles into the stalemate across the Western Front, leading to massive casualties and little territorial gain. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the Russians are having some success against the Austrians, pushing them back into their own territory. Back home in France, Suzanne anxiously awaits news of Antoine's safety as she works in the Red Cross sorting through supplies. Every night she prays that his name won't be among the long list of casualties published in the newspaper. She spends her days tending to the wounded soldiers, patching them up as best she can, and trying to keep their spirits up. She dreams of the day when Antoine will return home safely, when the war will be over and life will return to normal. But the war drags on longer than anyone anticipated, and the dream of a quick end seems increasingly unlikely. Meanwhile, deep in the trenches of the Western Front, Antoine and his comrades endure the horrors of war as they're bombarded day and night by artillery fire. They struggle to maintain their humanity in the face of such brutality, clinging to the hope of a better future. Back in France, the people suffer as food and resources become scarce. Women take on jobs traditionally held by men, and children work long hours in factories to help the war effort. The French public is losing faith in the government as the war continues to drag on and the casualties mount up. In Russia, the Tsars are also feeling the pressure. The war has been going badly, and the Russians are starting to lose faith in their leader. Rumors of a possible end to the war are circulating, but no one is sure what to believe anymore. In Germany, meanwhile, the people are rallying together to support their country in its darkest hour. The propaganda is everywhere, telling them that the war is going well and that victory is just around the corner. The Germans are starting to feel the strain of the war, but they believe that it will be worth it in the end. As the war enters its final stages, the Allies begin planning for the final push to victory. The Americans, who joined the conflict in 1917, play a crucial role in the Allied victory. But the cost of war is high for everyone involved. In total, more than 16 million people are estimated to have died during the war, with millions more wounded or missing. Europe is in ruins, and the world will never be the same again. As the armistice is signed and the guns fall silent, there is a sense of relief and jubilation across the world. For 4 years, the people of Europe have lived in fear of the next air raid or artillery strike. Now they can finally begin to rebuild their lives. But the peace that follows the war is fragile. There are still many unresolved issues in Europe, and the seeds of future conflicts are already being sown. The Treaty of Versailles is a controversial document that is meant to bring peace to Europe. However, it does nothing to address the underlying issues that caused the war. The treaty is seen as unfair by many Germans, and this resentment will contribute to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the start of the Second World War. After the war ends, Antoine returns home to France, where he is greeted as a hero. Everyone celebrates the end of the war and hopes for a brighter future. He reconnects with Suzanne, and the two are eventually married. They start a family and try to put the horrors of the war behind them. However, the scars of war run deep, and Antoine struggles to readjust to civilian life. He has lost many friends and family members in the conflict, and he is haunted by memories of the front lines. Despite these challenges, Antoine perseveres and becomes a successful businessman. He and Suzanne raise a happy family and live to see the rebuilding of France after the devastation of the war. But not everyone is so lucky. Many soldiers who fought in the war suffered from physical and psychological wounds that never fully healed. Some became alcoholics or drug addicts, while others took their own lives. The war had taken something from them that could never be given back. Over time, the memory of the war fades from living memory, but the lessons learned are never forgotten. The world had changed so much in just a few short years, and everyone hoped that the sacrifices made would never be in vain.